Hey guys, tonight we take a slow, meandering walk through dusty markets, starlit caravan trails, and centuries-old trade routes, where history was less about grand empires and more about what people ate when they got peckish. You'll smell roasted barley before you see it. You'll pass a boy hawking pomegranate seeds wrapped in goat gut. And yes, you will absolutely be offered a sip of fermented milk that's been traveling by yak for 3 weeks straight. You probably won't survive this snack tour with your modern digestive system intact, but that's okay. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And let me know where you're tuning in from and what time it is in your part of the world. I'm always curious who's drifting off where. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You've just arrived in Kashgar, and the air is thick with spices, cumin, cinnamon, dried chili dust, and under it all, the quieter scent of sun-baked silk. A clumsy goat noses your leg as you pass a crooked stall with a sun-faded awning. The vendor's missing 2 teeth, but he grins like he knows your secrets. He offers you 2 things: a rough palmful of dried snow pears, translucent and pale, almost papery, and a small strip of camel jerky that looks like it might outlive you. You chew cautiously. The pear is cool and just sweet enough to remind you of snowmelt. The jerky, tough as a leather saddle and just as dusty, but spiced with something like coriander and smoke. Kashgar, a city that's been playing traffic cop for merchants, monks, and mercenaries for over 2,000 years, was a major hub in the western Xinjiang region of China. By the time you're here, let's say the early Tang dynasty, it's already a bit weathered, a little smug about its importance. This is where Central Asia breathes into East Asia, and with it comes an astonishing range of portable snacks meant for saddlebags, pockets, and trading tongues. Mainstream historians love to talk about silk and jade and gunpowder, but you're more interested in the things tucked into travel cloaks, like a pouch of salted apricot stones that you're told to suck on, not bite. Or the spice-dusted fig leather, which looks like it was peeled off the bottom of someone's sandal, but tastes shockingly like fig Newtons if fig Newtons were rolled in ground mustard seed and regret. The locals claim camel meat preserves better than beef or lamb in the region's dry climate, and some travelers swore by it, not just for its salty punch, but because it was believed to fortify the body against bad water. Historians still argue whether this was a genuine health practice or just desert bravado. One trader, his breath a perfect blend of onions and philosophy, explains that snow pears were originally grown high in the Tian Shan Mountains and had to be dried quickly after picking to avoid spoilage. Dried, they traveled astonishingly well. Eaten slowly, they could even trick your parched mouth into thinking it was hydrated. You pass another booth where an old woman is selling something that looks like soft chalk. She says it's milkstone, evaporated camel milk formed into powdery nuggets. You politely decline. She shrugs. Your loss. Her ulcers. A pair of young Uyghur boys wave you over with palmfuls of grape honey nuts, little clusters of roasted walnuts bound with concentrated grape syrup, sticky enough to yank out a molar, sweet, rich, and much less threatening than that jerky. You sit near a fountain and watch as goods change hands, languages blur, and food serves its most ancient function, creating trust. You notice how each snack here does double duty. It's food, yes, but also medicine, currency, even charm. The camel jerky gets wrapped in silk swatches and sent east. The snow pears get offered to weary travelers like a first taste of home. And always someone is chewing, quietly, methodically, as if thinking is too hard on an empty mouth. Nearby, a man with sunburned cheeks takes a careful nibble of something crunchy, winces, then nods. "Walnut shells soaked in vinegar," he explains in slow Chinese. "You only suck on them. Break your teeth otherwise." His smile is vaguely threatening, but you accept one anyway. The vinegar floods your mouth, bright and sharp. You feel more awake than you'd like. You turn down a side alley and find a small child selling sun-baked melon rinds. They're cut thin, brittle like parchment, and flavored with powdered cumin and sesame. Not unpleasant, just odd. It said these rinds once lined royal plates in Chang'an. Now they line your pocket. There's a strange kind of peace in tasting things that history left behind, not because they were important, but precisely because they weren't. You're not chewing on treaties or dynastic ambition. You're chewing with the people who carried those things chewed when they were tired and bored and far from home. And you wonder, how many deals were sealed over camel jerky? How many friendships forged through shared snow pears? What secrets were whispered over grape honey nuts, sticky fingers and all? You take one last look at the marketplace, let your jaw rest from all the chewing, and get ready to move again. The Silk Road is long, and your stomach is cautiously optimistic. You've left Kashgar behind. The air is thinner now, and your boots crunch lightly over sun-bleached gravel as the road eases eastward. On the horizon, the Mogao caves of Dunhuang rise out of the land like fossilized memories, shrines carved into cliffs, their insides papered with centuries of art and incense. You didn't come here for the murals tonight, though. You're following your nose. Just outside the caves, along the trail worn smooth by pilgrims and painters, a string of small stalls lines the path. You pass one selling prayer flags, one selling paintbrushes made of goat hair, and then one with a steaming basket and a small girl fanning it with the diligence of someone who's been doing this since she could stand. She offers you a wooden skewer with honeyed lotus seeds, warm, golden, slightly sticky. You take a bite. They crunch gently like roasted corn kernels, but sweet and earthy, as if a nut had read a poem and decided to become gentle. Their shells glisten in a glaze of wild honey, and your fingers are soon coated in an amber sheen. These seeds were once tucked into the packs of Buddhist monks traveling to or from India, both as an offering and a snack. Nutrient-rich, symbolic of purity, and portable in a way that's hard not to admire. Historians still argue whether they were originally used more for ritual or for road food, but honestly, both purposes work fine when you're starving and spiritually curious. The air around Dunhuang is dry enough to preserve anything. It's said you can still find crumbs of ancient barley crackers tucked into cracks between manuscripts. Local snack makers lean into this desiccated aesthetic. Everything here seems either crisp, dusted, or encased in hard sugar. One elderly man pulls a cloth from a lidded basket and reveals a stack of spiced mung bean discs, pale green and dotted with black sesame, smelling faintly of cumin and something smoky. He offers one. It tastes like someone tried to bake the concept of vegetable memory, dry but oddly satisfying. Apparently, these were standard offerings left at cave altars, but nothing stops a traveling monk from having a nibble on the trail. There's a pervasive belief among locals that eating near a shrine brings good fortune, or at least better digestion. So the stalls outside Mogao developed into semi-permanent snack zones over time, especially during pilgrimage seasons. You glance at a group of pilgrims clustered around a pot of dried date porridge, each taking turns sipping the thick mixture with shared wooden spoons. It smells like molasses and hot stone. You're handed something wrapped in mulberry bark. Inside, 3 ginger-dusted melon balls. Dense, chewy, and sharper than expected. They make your ears tingle slightly. A merchant nearby winks. To keep the ghosts away, he says. Whether he means digestive or spiritual, you're not sure. Near the edge of the trail, 2 boys are selling blackened rice sticks, basically puffed rice bound with dark sugar and roasted over open coals until they almost taste burnt. A bit like charcoal brittle, if that existed, crunchy, sweet, with a hint of danger. They tell you a story between bites. Once a Tang official passed through this very trail and, finding himself faint with hunger, chewed on lotus seeds soaked in vinegar. He claimed they gave him visions. You ask if the seeds you ate earlier were soaked. They just grin and shrug. You're suddenly more alert than you meant to be. A low table nearby displays a curious offering. Almond jelly cubes, preserved with pine ash and stacked into a delicate little pyramid. You try one. Cold, floral, strangely refreshing. They melt fast in the mouth, leaving behind a ghost of almond and smoke. As the sun begins to dip, the stalls start packing up. Most travelers have moved on, their robes catching the wind, their boots leaving soft prints in the red best. You linger, nibbling on the last of your honeyed lotus seeds, now warm from your pocket. A young woman calls out, waving a folded cloth. She unwraps it to reveal small round tea leaf cookies, greenish and speckled, smelling faintly like boiled herbs and roasted chestnut. You chew one slowly. It crumbles immediately, like it was barely holding together in the first place. She says they're made from leftover tea dregs, mixed with barley flour and a little yak milk. Pilgrim fuel, she calls it. You wonder how many of these snacks were born not from culinary ambition, but necessity. Leftovers dried, dusted, packed tight. What survives becomes tradition. What gets shared becomes sacred. What gets sold to strangers like you, well, that becomes memory. As you leave Dunhuang behind, belly modestly full, you carry more than a few crumbs in your robe folds. The honey from the lotus seeds has glued your fingers together slightly, and your tongue still tingles from that suspicious ginger. Up ahead, the road climbs. Your next stop will be colder, drier, and far, far saltier. But for now, you hum quietly to yourself, with sesame on your breath and no ghosts in sight. The road is steeper now, and the air thinner with every step. You wrap your scarf tighter as the wind begins to taste like old stone and frozen grass. Welcome to the Tibetan Plateau, a vast, unyielding plain perched high above sea level, where travelers wheeze, yaks blink slowly, and snacks are mostly hot, oily, and oddly comforting. You've arrived in a tiny settlement nestled between wind-carved cliffs and prayer flag forests. The locals don't speak much, but they don't need to. They wave you toward a low tent, where the unmistakable smell of butter and barley leaks from the seams. You duck inside. A woman hands you a bowl of yak butter tea, and you try not to flinch. It's the consistency of melted candle wax, smells like smoked socks, and has a hint of salt that lands directly on your molars. But oh, it's warm, and that's all that matters at this altitude. Yak butter tea, or po cha, has been a staple of Tibetan culture for centuries. It's made by churning tea leaves, water, yak butter, and salt into a thick, frothy blend. While your taste buds recoil slightly, your chest feels warm for the first time all day. It's not a snack in the conventional sense, but it certainly replaces a meal, and in many cases, replaces the will to keep hiking. On the low wooden table beside you sits a stack of roasted barley cakes, dense, dark, and a little smoky. You tear off a piece. It crumbles in your hand, gritty like wet sand, but the flavor is nutty, hearty, grounding. Made from tsampa, a flour milled from roasted barley, these cakes are often kneaded directly into yak butter or rolled with dried cheese curds to create improvised on-the-go energy balls. Basically, trail mix's grim, ancient uncle. Outside, a man in layered wool robes unwraps a satchel to reveal rock-hard cheese nuggets called chirpy. You pop one in your mouth. Mistake. It's like chewing marble. These cheese bits are aged until they could be classified as weapons, but locals suck on them slowly during long treks. Your jaw politely declines the challenge. A group of monks walks by, each carrying a leather pouch filled with something powdery. You ask what's inside. The answer? Tsampa flour. Again. They eat it dry, mixed with tea or water, rolled into pellets and swallowed whole. No chewing, no time wasted, just fuel. You respect the efficiency. Near the edge of the village, someone's frying something in a shallow pan over an open yak dung fire. You approach cautiously. The man grins and offers you a bite of fried nettle fritters. Crispy little green things dusted with salt and juniper ash. You take one. It's surprisingly delicate, crackling like dried leaves underfoot, but with a vegetal kick that clears your sinuses. Historians still argue whether these high-altitude snacks were developed primarily for nutrition, spiritual significance, or just survival in a place where nothing grows easily. Some believe that butter tea, for example, had ritualistic origins, used to warm the soul as well as the body. Others argue it was just the only practical way to not freeze. You wander further uphill and pass a shepherd boiling something in a blackened pot. He gestures for you to sit and offers a bowl of fermented barley porridge, a tangy, gluey concoction topped with a slick of oil. It's polarizing. You eat it because he's watching. As the sun begins to set, the temperature drops fast. You huddle by a fire shared with two traders, one from Ladakh, the other from western Sichuan. Between them sits a cloth-wrapped bundle. Inside, sun-dried turnip slices coated in red chili powder and something resembling pine resin. You chew one carefully. It tastes like a vegetable dared to become jerky. Spicy, sour, crunchy, and surprisingly pleasant once you get past the initial shock. The Ladakhi man pulls out a final offering, a string of dried sea buckthorn berries, tiny, tart, and mouth-puckeringly sour. Rich in vitamin C, he claims. Good for lungs, he adds, tapping his chest. You pop a few. They taste like lemon and rust in the best possible way. Your fingers are now sticky with butter, resin, and something that might be chili paste. Your mouth is warm, your belly fuller than expected, and your brain gently floating on an oily cloud of salt and barley. You feel the altitude less. The stars come out early here, unbothered by clouds or smoke. As you lie back, the memory of yak butter clings stubbornly to your tongue. You're not mad about it. Not exactly. You think about the monks who traveled these same paths, nibbling dry cakes and sipping oily tea, humming sutras under their breath. You think about the herders carving cheese harder than bones and handing it to strangers. You think about how food this simple can feel this alive. And somewhere in the back of your mind, you're already wondering what the next region will taste like. Hopefully, less fermented. By the time you descend into Persian territory, the air has warmed again, dusty, fragrant, and heavy with the scent of citrus and crushed herbs. You're in the domain of poets now, and even the snacks feel like they were written in iambic pentameter. Your boots crunch over gravel paths flanked by orchards and olive groves, and up ahead you spot a roadside stand beneath an awning stitched from date palm fronds. A man with perfectly sculpted eyebrows gestures toward a bowl of shimmering dark red paste, pomegranate molasses. He dips a bit of flatbread into it and hands it over. The flavor smacks you gently, sweet, tart, thick as syrup, with the sourness of a fruit that always wanted to be taken seriously. You chew slowly. It tastes like it could preserve a body for burial or start a war, probably both. Pomegranate molasses was a staple in Persian cuisine and medicinal practice. Travelers used it to flavor dried meats, mask spoiled lentils, or simply as a spoonful of joy in the middle of nowhere. It was also believed to cool the body during hot journeys. Historians still argue whether it was originally used as a sweetener or a remedy, but frankly, it does both jobs better than most. Next to the molasses, a small ceramic jar holds a pile of pickled almonds, pale green, slightly wrinkled, floating in cloudy brine. You lift one, bite, and immediately wonder if you've made a mistake. They're tangy, herbal, and just soft enough to chew without feeling like betrayal. A merchant nearby explains that unripe almonds are soaked in vinegar and salt water with dill and crushed garlic, originally a way to keep the harvest edible in long drought seasons. You wander further into a Persian caravanserai, where traders lounge in shaded alcoves, sipping something pinkish from clay cups. One offers you a taste, rosewater whey drink, oddly cooling, perfumed, and faintly dairy. You take a polite sip and smile in the same way you would if someone showed you their weirdly talented dog, impressed but unsure what to do with it. Beside them, a platter of saffroned apricots glows in the setting sun. They're sliced thin, dried to papery curls, and dusted in golden powder. You pick one up. It melts on your tongue like candied sunlight. A small girl explains solemnly that these are only for important guests. She says this while handing you 4 more. You thank her like you've just been knighted. The deeper into Persia you travel, the more layered the flavors become. A man hands you a twist of fenugreek brittle, which shatters in your mouth like sugared gravel and leaves behind a deeply bitter, earthy aftertaste. Like licorice fell in love with soil. In one quiet courtyard, a merchant offers you a strange dried fruit wrapped in paper. salted green plum leather, puckered and briny, designed to survive endless sandstorms. You bite. It's as if your mouth just walked through a desert and now needs therapy, but oddly satisfying. You stop at a rest point where fire-roasted breads are being slapped onto the sides of a tandoor-like oven. A boy tears off a corner and wraps it around spiced lamb fat crisps, thin, salty slivers cooked until nearly translucent. You take a bite. Crunch, rich, carnivorous. Your body thanks you. Your arteries sigh. While nibbling, a trader shares an old tale about a legendary Persian general who refused all army rations except for dried melon soaked in sour cherry vinegar. You try to imagine that snack now. No one seems to have it, but they all nod like it was a perfectly reasonable request. Historians still argue whether this story was literal or just a poetic way of describing a picky eater. At the back of the courtyard, you notice a woven basket filled with sun-dried cucumbers, sliced thin and smoked over walnut shells. They crunch like chips, taste faintly like scorched gardens, and pair well with the small cup of date seed coffee someone just handed you. You sip. Bitter, earthy, almost chocolatey. Made from ground roasted date pits, it was often consumed during fasting periods or long hauls across the plateau. Traders swore it gave them the vision of lions. You suspect it gave them something else, maybe just the shakes. You lie back against a sun-warmed wall, belly content, pockets full of small cloth bundles now sticky with molasses and apricot sugar. The light softens. A lute plays somewhere nearby. It's hard not to feel like part of something older here, like the snacks themselves remember every hand they've passed through. They've traveled in saddle pouches, royal caravans, dusty trader satchels. Now they're yours, at least until you get hungry again. One last thing before you go. A wandering healer offers you a small lump of candied turmeric root, amber-colored and hard as rock. You tuck it in your cheek. It numbs your tongue slightly, then soothes your throat. He says, for speaking with fire. And with that strange little phrase lodged in your mind and turmeric lodged in your molars, you press on, toward the heart of Central Asia. Your mouth tingles, your feet are light, the road hums beneath you. The sun has turned fierce again, and the horizon glitters with that odd, shivering heat you only see in steppe country. You're somewhere near Samarkand now, maybe a day or two from the city itself, but the region's mood has already shifted. Fewer fig trees, more horses, less rosewater, more saddle sweat. You pass a camp of traders huddled around low fires, their carts packed with felt, fermented goods, and a truly astonishing number of sheep bladders. One of the men sees you dragging your feet and waves you over, grinning like someone who's about to feed you something he absolutely knows you won't like. He offers you a bowl of kumis, or fermented mare's milk, a traditional beverage in the steppes of Central Asia, famously pungent, famously sour, and famously made from the milk of horses. It smells aggressive, like yogurt left in the sun, then re-fermented out of spite. You brace yourself and take a sip. It's fizzy, slightly bitter, and has a curious tang that could be lemon zest or goat breath. Honestly, it's not the worst thing you've had. You won't be buying a barrel, but you nod politely as the others raise their cups. Historians still argue whether kumis was consumed for nutritional purposes, medicinal uses, or simply to keep spirits high on those endless treks across the grasslands. Either way, it packs a mild alcoholic buzz and was once believed to sharpen eyesight and cure melancholia. Judging by the merry yelling happening 2 tents down, it still might. Beside the fire, someone's slicing fermented sheep fat into translucent chunks and pressing them into flatbread with raw onions. You decline. He shrugs. More for him. Instead, a younger trader offers you something more approachable, a small cloth packet filled with carrot candies, an old Turkic specialty. These are made from shaved carrots boiled in honey and vinegar, then sun-dried into chewy sticks. You try one. It's sweet, tart, with a faint crunch that suggests you might be chewing a vegetable's dream of being a dessert. Surprisingly good. You walk past another camp where a woman is stirring something in a clay pot. She offers you a spoonful of millet porridge laced with sour plum, a staple among nomadic families. It's soft, slightly tart, and very beige, comforting, like if sadness had a temperature. Further down the trail, a Kazakh traveler pulls out a tightly sealed pouch and reveals his prize: horse jerky, marinated in fermented garlic paste. He offers a slice. You chew. It's gamey, intensely salty, with a whiff of barn that clings to your sinuses. Not terrible, definitely unforgettable. He watches your face with great amusement, and then pats your back hard enough to realign your spine. In the shade of a juniper bush, a pair of travelers sit chewing something thoughtfully. You sit with them. One hands you a bundle of dried gooseberries rolled in salt and pepper. Tart, puckery, with just enough kick to wake your taste buds. These fruits grow wild in parts of the steppe, and travelers say they're good for keeping the throat moist and the stomach calm. You're grateful. Your stomach's been through a lot lately. You spot a child tugging at your sleeve, holding out what looks like a flattened dough coin. She smiles and says it's sun-baked yogurt bark, made by spreading fermented milk onto stones and drying it until crisp. You nibble the corner. It dissolves into a sour cloud, like biting into dusty lemon air. Not bad. Oddly satisfying, especially in the dry heat. Nearby, someone's roasting wild onion bulbs in hot sand. The smell is intoxicating, earthy, sharp, a little sweet. They hand you one wrapped in linen. You peel it, take a bite. Soft, buttery, with a flavor like roasted garlic and regret. You immediately want 3 more. A particularly flamboyant Sogdian trader offers you a snack from his cart. Plum paste jerky strips, flavored with mint and wine lees. They were originally designed as a dessert for traveling nobles, he explains, but now they're just a favorite among long-haul merchants. The texture is somewhere between licorice and betrayal. You take another bite anyway. He laughs and shows you a pouch of pressed rhubarb cakes, dried and pounded flat with pine ash. He says they aid digestion. You pop one in. Your stomach immediately agrees, possibly out of fear. As the evening arrives, the wind picks up, carrying the smell of livestock, leather, and something faintly fruity. One woman offers you cucumber rinds pickled in fermented mare's whey. You pause, politely refuse. She grins like she expected that. You sit on a large stone as the sun dips, chewing quietly on another carrot candy, watching as fires are lit and songs rise into the sky. It's easy to forget how harsh this land can be when the food sings so loudly. It's also easy to remember that for these nomadic people, snacks weren't just for enjoyment. They were survival tools. long-lasting, nutrient-dense, made from whatever you could preserve. And if it made you burp fire or dream of horses, well, that was just part of the charm. You lie back against a saddlebag, still humming that strange melody of pickled plums and fermented everything, and close your eyes to the sound of horse bells and soft, drunken arguing in 3 languages. You wake to the sound of something sizzling. A breeze, heavy with sugar, cardamom, and wood smoke, carries you forward, toward the edges of a bustling Sogdian caravanserai, where dozens of traders have made camp around a courtyard dotted with fire pits, date palms, and wooden awnings carved with swirling patterns. This is a true crossroads, where goods and flavors mix like stories told around a fire. You spot copper pots bubbling on open flames, textiles fluttering in the breeze, and most importantly, plates of snacks being arranged with the kind of care normally reserved for religious ceremonies or birthday cakes. A young woman hands you a warm sliver of candied rose petals pressed between 2 almond crackers. You blink. It's soft, fragrant, and just barely sweet, like a pastry made by someone trying very hard not to impress you. The rose is subtle, but it lingers in your nose like perfume on silk. The almond adds crunch. The whole thing vanishes in 2 polite bites. Candied petals were a specialty of both Sogdian and Persian cuisines, used to infuse flavor into otherwise bland travel fare. Some say they were originally crafted for royalty. Others argue they were simply what happened when you had too many flowers and not enough fruit. Historians still debate whether these delicate treats were meant for consumption or for courtship. But tonight, they're just for you. Next up, a sticky packet of spiced apricots soaked in saffron and vinegar. You bite into one and feel the sudden rush of sweetness crash into tart, then mellow into warm spices that make your ears tingle. A merchant nearby says they're preserved this way to withstand long journeys and also to keep travelers cheerfully alert. You believe it. You follow your nose toward a pan of honey-fried pistachios, being stirred with a stick carved into the shape of a griffin. They're crackling in a bubbling bath of clarified butter and golden syrup. A boy offers you a handful. You pop one into your mouth. Crunchy, warm, sweet, gone in a blink. Nearby, a pair of old traders argue about whether clove-dusted walnut paste should be eaten before or after dinner. One offers you a taste. You accept. It's sticky, rich, and coats your mouth like the memory of a dessert you once loved and can't quite remember. Not exactly candy, not quite nut butter, somewhere in between. There's a stall selling something truly strange. Charcoal-baked quince slices, wrapped in grape leaves and slow-roasted in clay. You try one. The texture is leathery. The flavor is sweet, smoky, with a bitter finish. Apparently, these were thought to calm the heart and encourage polite digestion, whatever that means. You're not sure your stomach believes in manners anymore. A young girl sets down a small bowl in front of you. Pine nut halva balls, dusted with poppy seeds. One bite and you're somewhere else entirely. Sweet, grainy, a little chewy. The kind of snack that makes you exhale through your nose and stare at nothing for a while. They say halva was passed around as a peace offering between rival traders. You can see why. It's impossible to fight while your mouth is full of nostalgia and ground seeds. Someone hands you a strip of mint-laced date leather, folded like ribbon. You bite. It's cool, sticky, a little bitter, and very, very brown. Travel candy at its most utilitarian. Locals call it desert tongue cleaner. You decide not to ask. By a fire pit, a couple from Bactria is roasting chickpea patties on a flat stone, crispy on the outside, spiced with coriander and dried lime. One of them presses a patty into your hand with a smile. It's humble, hearty, and strangely addictive. You immediately want 6 more. This is how wars start, you think. Someone steals someone else's chickpea patties. You overhear a debate between 2 scholars about whether the Sogdians introduced saffron snacks to China or vice versa. One claims to have evidence in the form of a ledger noting saffron exports for the livening of dull rice. The other claims that was a mistranslation, and it actually said, for use in funerary incense. You sip some dried fig tea and let them hash it out. At the far end of the camp, a woman is selling something she calls caravan sugar, compressed blocks of dried fruit pulp mixed with salt and pepper. She slices off a piece. You chew. It's rough, chewy, salty sweet, and makes your teeth itch. Perfect for long rides, she says. Or emergency bartering. Or curing boredom. It does all 3. You lounge against a wall, licking saffron and vinegar from your fingertips, when someone passes you a pouch of toasted melon seeds seasoned with sumac and ground tamarind. You pop a few. They're tangy, nutty, and weirdly satisfying to crunch between your teeth. You imagine ancient poets arguing over melon seeds while composing love letters in the margins of trade manifests. By now, your bag is bulging with sticky paper packets and cloth wraps tied with twine. Your breath smells like flowers, vinegar, and a faint trace of toasted walnut. Your tongue can't decide what it's feeling. Sweet, sour, spiced. All 3? The fires burn low. Traders sleep in curls of fabric and laughter. The wind has cooled. You feel full, not just in your belly, but somewhere deeper. Like you've eaten pieces of 100 strangers' stories. And yet, the road tugs gently at your sleeve. Because ahead, beyond the caravan walls, life flavors even stranger. A little crunchier. A little closer to things that once crawled. You smiled sleepily. You'll chew them too. Eventually. You set out before sunrise, the air crisp and still with a thin mist curling along the path like a lazy snake. The road now winds toward the heartlands of China, and as the sun rises behind the jagged hills, you find yourself entering a region where snacks begin to take on an entirely new texture, softer, squishier, and occasionally still moving. The first village you pass is nestled beside a mulberry grove, the trees rustling with faint motion. You pause to admire the view, and that's when you notice the trays laid out beside the houses. Hundreds of silkworm pupae drying in neat little rows, like ancient finger food, waiting for courage. You're not quite sure who offers you one first. A small boy, maybe, or possibly a grandmother with excellent aim and a plate full of roasted insects. But either way, you're handed a hot, crisp, boiled silkworm, seasoned with ginger and soy. It looks like a tan peanut with legs. You pop it in your mouth. The outside crunches, the inside does not. The flavor is nutty, vaguely meaty, and entirely unforgettable. Silkworms have been part of Chinese street cuisine for over a millennium, especially in silk-producing regions like Sichuan and Jiangsu. Nutrient-dense, easy to raise, and resilient to travel, they were especially common in the warmer months. Historians still argue whether their popularity was purely practical or also tied to certain spiritual traditions, where eating the silkworm was said to bring harmony with nature. You're just hoping it brings harmony to your stomach. You move along to a market street, where a vendor stirs a bubbling pot of something dark red and thick. She offers you a slice of toast slathered in spiced beetle paste. You pause. She nods encouragingly. The paste is made from ground water beetles, chili oil, black vinegar, and star anise. You chew. It's spicy, slightly metallic, and surprisingly similar to spicy miso. You pretend not to like it, then go back for a second slice. A man squatting beside a tray offers you what looks like chewy candy. Dried jellyfish strips, he explains. Sweet and salty, good for knees. You accept one. It's rubbery, dusted with sesame and sugar, and tastes like a gummy bear took a swim in brine. The texture makes your mouth pause halfway through, unsure whether to commit. You swallow anyway. Your knees feel the same. By the harbor, in a small canal town, a woman hands you a cone filled with lotus root crisps, thin, golden rings fried in duck fat and dusted with cinnamon. Now these are divine. They crunch like perfection, sweet, savory, floral, a rare snack that loves you back. You sit by the water, watching as fishermen unload their catch and children race down the docks. A boy passes with a stick of candied crab apples, their red skins glistening under a glaze of maltose syrup. He offers you one. You bite in. Sweet, tart, and a little grainy. Your teeth ache a little, but your soul purrs. A scholar visiting from the coast shows you a peculiar treat: rice flour dumplings filled with fermented mustard greens and dried shrimp. He calls them portable moral lessons. You ask why. He says because they're bitter but useful. You eat one. He's not wrong. In a small alley, a vendor fans a tray of roasted wasp larvae, each one carefully brushed with honey and soy. Crunchy now, she says. Very crunchy. You try one. It's crisp, airy, and leaves behind a strangely toasted aftertaste. You consider how many of these you'd need to call it dinner. Probably too many. You stroll into a Buddhist temple courtyard where monks are stirring sweet barley porridge with pickled jujube slices. The jujube is chewy, sweet-sour, and almost meaty. The barley is soft and warm. Together they feel like the breakfast equivalent of being hugged by an elderly librarian. One monk offers you a small clay pot filled with cold mung bean jelly, flavored with vinegar, garlic, and chili flakes. It jiggles ominously. You slurp it. It slides into your mouth like a gentle dare and hits with a spicy sour zing that somehow clears your sinuses and your conscience. Later, you pass a dried goods stall selling pressed melon seed cakes, stacked like bricks. You buy one. It crumbles like brittle when bitten, releasing the buttery richness of roasted seeds and just a whisper of honey. You pocket a few more for the road. Even further east, you reach a lakeside village famous for its medicinal snacks. A traveling herbalist offers you a chewable plum kernel biscuit, laced with licorice root and powdered deer antler. You raise an eyebrow. He says, "Very good for long walking." You bite. It's grainy, bittersweet, and tastes faintly like mossy furniture. You chew slowly, wondering what your legs will feel like tomorrow. At dusk, a young woman gives you a folded leaf bundle filled with sticky rice balls coated with crushed black sesame and ginger powder. They're warm, soft, a little gooey. You take a bite and suddenly feel every mile you've walked melt into the back of your eyes. You sit quietly on the temple steps, your belly mildly confused but mostly satisfied. The taste of beetles, roots, jujube, and silkworms still lingers in your mouth like a dream you're not quite ready to wake up from. And in that still moment, you realize the Silk Road was never really about silk. It was about flavors that travel, stories that crunch, and the people willing to eat strange things with strangers under the same sky. The trail turns rocky again as you descend from the east into the highlands of what is now Kurdistan, where wind-worn hills cradle small villages, and every stone seems to carry its own whisper. You pass terraces of olive trees and crooked stone ovens, the smell of burnt thyme and roasting something inviting you closer. You're led by a herder's daughter to a family courtyard, where you're offered a snack wrapped in what looks like very old parchment. Inside, goat cheese wrapped in fig leaves, aged until its scent could politely be called assertive. You take a nibble. It's creamy, salty, and tinged with something smoky and herbal, thanks to the fig leaves it's been sleeping in for weeks, possibly months. Road cheese, the girl says, keeps for months, maybe years. You don't ask if this piece is from last year, but you do finish it. You're a professional now. A little later, a caravaner from the Zagros Mountains shares a cloth bundle of turmeric-dusted dates stuffed with crushed walnuts. They're soft, golden, a little gritty, and absolutely addictive. Turmeric stains your fingertips as you eat. Your mouth fills with warmth, spice, and the odd satisfaction of something your ancestors would have also chewed while contemplating cloud shapes. These kinds of preserved dates traveled well in arid climates, and historians still argue whether their original use was medicinal or indulgent. They were prescribed for fatigue, sure, but also served at weddings. You conclude they were probably used for everything, including bribing tired travelers into a better mood. You pass through a sunlit bazaar where a man flips a small flatbread on a concave pan. He tears it open and smears it with pickled wild thyme paste. You bite. It hits with sharpness, a tang like green lightning. It clears your sinuses and resets your soul. He laughs. Good for travelers, bad for breath. Noted. Nearby, a woman stirs a pot of smoked eggplant dip, served cold and thick, scooped up with stale bread that's been re-steamed over a pot of mint tea. The eggplant is almost sweet, the smokiness mellow, and you start to understand how humble vegetables here are coaxed into greatness by sheer necessity and ancestral stubbornness. A boy brings over a plate of roasted chickpeas coated in sumac and salt, their skins blistered and popping. You toss a few in your mouth. Crunchy, tangy, familiar and new all at once. Perfect for snacking as you walk, or tossing at someone who took the last date-stuffed cheese. Further up the trail, a shepherd offers you a curious treat: dried sour plums rolled in ash, a local method of preserving fruit using wood fire remains. You hesitate. He insists. You bite. It's tart, smoky, and somehow better than it sounds. The ash isn't gritty, it's part of the flavor now. You wonder how many brilliant food ideas began as accidents. As you descend into a valley village, You're handed a small clay bowl filled with cucumber yogurt dip, thickened with barley flour. It's cool, herby, and just solid enough to scoop with your fingers if no one's judging, which here they aren't. Refreshing in the heat, surprisingly filling. You rest under a fig tree, where an old woman peels open what looks like a miniature pouch made of dried grape skins. Inside, dried apricot pulp mixed with dried mint and crushed olives. You nibble. Sweet, salty, earthy, and tangy? It's like trail mix made by a poet on a very tight budget. She smiles as you chew. "Good for long thinking," she says. Later, at a mountaintop spring, a trader offers you a cup of barley sherbet infused with wild anise and rose petals. It's cool, sweet, with a faint licorice bite that lingers behind your teeth like a rumor. This drink, you're told, once refreshed royal envoys as they crossed these paths. You believe it. You also want a jug of it for later. Near the end of the day, you're given a wedge of lamb fat and lentil pie, folded into layers of thin pastry and slow-baked in ash. It's not quite a snack, not quite a meal. Dense, rich. The kind of food that stays with you, emotionally and otherwise. Locals swear it builds knees, which might be a mistranslation or just solid nutritional advice. And just before sundown, you sit beside a man rolling small orbs of quince leather wrapped around cracked peppercorns and fennel seeds. He hands you one. You chew slowly. The quince is tart and chewy. The pepper hits late. The fennel lasts forever. A full journey in one bite. As the wind picks up and the horizon goes gold, you realize your pockets are full again. Cheese crumbs, date sugar, a bit of thyme under your fingernail. Your lips tingle from pepper and mint. Your soul feels heavy and light at once. In the hush of twilight, you understand what the traders meant when they said food carries memory. It does. You're chewing memories, and now they're yours too. You don't so much arrive in South Asia as tumble into it, senses first. The colors shift. The air is heavier, riper, buzzing with insect song and the scent of mango, dust, and something sharp and vinegary that instantly makes your mouth water or possibly twitch. By the time you reach a small market outpost near the northern edge of the subcontinent, somewhere between Taxila and Peshawar, you're already surrounded by baskets overflowing with tamarind bark, charred beetle leaves, and mysterious pickled things that look like they could file taxes on their own. A wiry vendor with the confidence of a snake charmer hands you a flat strip of something brown and glossy. Peppered lizard meat, he says, dried over hot stones, very good for the joints. You look at it. It looks back. You chew. Tough, spicy, gamey. Surprisingly clean flavor, though you can't quite tell if that's from the seasoning or the fact that it's been smoked within an inch of its lizardy life. Lizards were used more often than you'd think in early South Asian foodways, not for religious reasons, but practical ones. In dry regions, they were protein that could be preserved without the hassle of herding or pasture. Historians still argue whether certain reptiles were prized delicacies or just last-ditch trail snacks. Your jaw's still locked from the chewing, so you're inclined to believe both. Beside a temple wall, a girl sells little pouches of spiced jackfruit seeds, roasted and coated in turmeric and dried mango powder. You pop one. Crunch, earthy, almost nut-like, with a tart finish that makes you blink. They're known locally to aid digestion and chase away bad spirits of the stomach, which you suspect is code for everything you've eaten this week. You move through the market slowly, greeted with warm grins and strange offers. A man slicing something pale and sticky calls you over. "Coconut vinegar jelly cubes," he says. "From the south. Good for heat." They're translucent, quivering, and sour enough to straighten your spine. You eat one and instantly regret and then crave another. A roadside vendor fans coals under a clay pot, turning skewers of charred okra dipped in jaggery and black salt. You take a piece. It's chewy, sweet, savory, with a bitterness that clings to the back of your throat like a stubborn memory. Oddly comforting. You pass a shrine where pilgrims snack on something wrapped in a dried banana leaf. You're handed one. Inside, rice cakes mixed with tamarind pulp and sesame seed brittle, pressed into chewy discs. Portable, pocket-friendly, and surprisingly addictive. One elderly woman seated cross-legged beside a basket offers you crispy lentil fritters stuffed with sour hibiscus flowers. You blink. She nods. You bite. Crunchy, floral, spicy, a little like biting into a garden argument. A man near the well unwraps a cloth bundle and reveals pickled garlic cloves stuffed into dried gooseberries. He pops one into his mouth like candy. You do the same. It's sharp, sweet, and makes your whole jaw go electric. You try not to cry. He chuckles. Further along the dusty road, a spice vendor pulls you aside and places a small cone of sugarcane-wrapped fennel seeds and asafoetida chips in your hand. Chew slowly, he warns. You do. It tastes like the inside of a monastery kitchen, herbal, mysterious, and slightly dangerous. Your breath will smell like enlightenment for hours. You pass a rest stop where traveling students share charcoal-toasted wheat crisps flavored with curry leaf and lime peel. You're given a piece. It crackles like dry leaves and tastes like fried philosophy. It pairs well with the cup of lukewarm spiced buttermilk they pass around, speckled with black mustard seeds and fresh mint. One man shows you a bag of fermented lentil balls dried in sunlight, used as trail rations, and occasionally thrown at bandits. You believe him. You chew one. It's tangy, deeply savory, and gives off the faint taste of old arguments. You ask for a second. A young boy with a copper tray offers you curry leaf meringue cookies made from whipped lentil water and dried over coals. You blink. Is this dessert? Is this dinner? Both? Neither? You take one. It dissolves into a salty puff of herbal foam, and you momentarily forget what time it is. Nearby, a group of monks pass around dried tamarind stems dipped in lime ash, chewing thoughtfully like they're debating the nature of the universe via their molars. You're handed one. It tastes like bark that went to finishing school. A little awful, a little addicting. You rest beneath a mango tree, fanning yourself with an old map, mouth tingling from salt, ash, and sour bark. Somewhere nearby, someone's singing softly while pounding turmeric into paste. You smell cardamom, dried onions, and patience. This land's snacks aren't shy. They wake you up, slap your senses, and send you off with a kick to the taste buds and a story in your teeth. They're survival food, medicine, flirtation, and philosophy rolled into one, and always made to travel. You close your eyes, tamarind on your tongue, lizard meat in your past, sleepy dreams just ahead. You reach Antioch just as the sun dips low enough to gild everything in a soft orange glaze. It's the kind of light that makes olives shimmer, makes the dust glow like perfume, and makes a basket of aggressively brined candies look almost romantic. The Levantine outposts of the Silk Road were a place of convergence. East and west, desert and sea, Greek and Persian, spice and salt, and, naturally, snacks that somehow married all of those opposites in one crunchy, squishy bite. You pass through a crooked archway and into a shaded plaza, where a young man with too much hair oil offers you something that looks like a gemstone. Olive brine candy, he says, grinning. Imported olives, boiled in honey, soaked in salt water, then dried in rose water. You ask, politely, if he's serious. He nods, solemnly. You try it. The taste is confusing in waves. Sweet, then salty, then bitter, then sweet again. Your face tries on several expressions before settling on politely intrigued. Historians still argue whether this sort of sweet and savory snacking was born of culinary innovation or just sheer boredom. Whatever its origins, you're now 90% sure your taste buds are working overtime. You move on to a shaded vendor stall where a woman is slicing figs marinated in fish sauce and fennel. You blink. She shrugs. She says it's old Roman recipe for digestion. You pop a slice in your mouth. Sweet, salty, a little licorice, and not nearly as fishy as you feared. A distant flavor of something that might have been wine. You could get used to this. Maybe. Another merchant hands you a thin wafer of pressed date paste layered with crushed sesame and dried mint. It's brittle, delicate, and tastes like a lullaby. You eat it in 2 bites, like someone who knows it's too fancy to chew with your mouth open. Just beyond the spice stalls, a baker pulls from his hearth a tray of vinegar-glazed lentil cakes. They smell tangy, warm, and slightly spicy, like someone tried to reinvent the cookie using war rations. You try one. It crumbles softly, then kicks your sinuses with a hit of red sumac and vinegar. Strange? Absolutely. But memorable in the best way. A pair of Armenian traders at a fire pit offer you salted apricot skins stuffed with goat cheese and thyme. You chew cautiously. It's creamy, tart, and faintly citrusy. A snack born for travel. A little protein, a little sugar, a little joy tucked into a bite-sized parcel. They tell you it was once considered soldier food, meant to fortify the body and keep the mind sharp. You feel slightly sharper already, or maybe just saltier. Nearby, a street musician shares a hand-rolled packet of roasted barley puffs dipped in pomegranate syrup, sticky and still warm from the morning sun. You pop one into your mouth and are instantly transported into a mood you didn't know food could induce, something like soft melancholy and an afternoon nap. He nods, like he knew that would happen. In a shaded alley, you encounter one of the region's more peculiar delicacies, fermented grape leaf paste balls, rolled in crushed coriander and citrus rind. They're small, squishy, and designed to be tucked into the cheek like a lozenge. You chew one. It tastes like vinegar and poetry. Your left eye twitches slightly, but your whole chest feels clear afterward. Probably medicinal, possibly illegal in 3 provinces. An older woman beckons you toward her open-air kitchen, where she's frying onion-stuffed olives in olive oil and dusting them with cinnamon. She presses one into your hand. You bite. It explodes. Salty, spicy, sweet, oily, too much and yet not enough. You thank her with your whole body. By the docks, a boy hands you a pouch filled with dried chickpea brittle, mixed with caraway seeds and dried lemon zest. You crunch on it while watching ships bob gently in the harbor. The chickpeas are crispy, the lemon bright, and your molars now fully awake. A Greek-speaking baker offers you something odd: herbed sea salt shortbread. You raise an eyebrow. He insists. You bite. It's crumbly, buttery, and just barely sweet. Then comes the herb hit: dill, oregano, followed by a whisper of sea salt. It's like your grandmother and a fisherman made a pastry together. You'd eat it again, maybe with wine. Someone gives you a final treat for the road: a folded fig leaf packet filled with goat's milk caramel and dried coriander flowers. You unwrap it slowly. The caramel is soft, floral, and just a bit funky. The kind of snack that might have a scandalous family history. You savor it, and then tuck the fig leaf into your pouch like a souvenir. As the light fades, you sit on a low stone wall overlooking the sea. Your pockets are full of sticky wrappers. Your mouth tingles with salt, mint, vinegar, and nostalgia. Antioch doesn't give snacks. It offers puzzles. Each bite a riddle. Each flavor a balancing act between the land and the sea, the east and the west, the ordinary and the strange. You lean back, heavy with food and thought. You can still taste the olive brine candy, somehow. And you know, without question, that the road ahead will only get weirder. The terrain stretches flat and pale now, a land scorched by sun and silence, deep desert country. You've crossed into a world of wind-carved stone and bleached sand, the kind of place where snacks need to be as tough as the people who carry them, and where even food seems to whisper, "I survive, therefore I am." Your camel driver, a wiry man with teeth like polished ivory, offers you something from his saddlebag. He unwraps a bundle of waxed cloth to reveal dried mango skins rubbed with cumin and salt. They're leathery, thin, and curled at the edges like forgotten scrolls. You chew cautiously, tough, tart, salty, with a smoky aftertaste like wind-blown spice. The kind of snack that makes your jaw do most of the work. But it's weirdly satisfying, and your mouth perks up at the tang. These dried mango skins were the desert's answer to fruit rolls. Sun-dried, shelf-stable, and believed to cool the blood during hot rides. Some were even infused with powdered camel milk to add protein, though thankfully yours is not. Historians still argue whether these were reserved for warriors or simply handed out to restless children. Either way, you feel oddly heroic chewing one. Further along the trail, you stop in a sun-bleached outpost where traders are tending a charcoal fire under a flapping canvas. One of them hands you a peculiar triangle, a camel cheese wafer, crisp and thin, made by drying sour camel milk into flakes and pressing them between flatbread sheets. You bite in. It shatters instantly, sharp with tang and salt and an undertone of something goat-adjacent, but in the best way. Camel cheese is notoriously hard to make. It doesn't coagulate like cow's milk, but among desert communities, it's been mastered through centuries of necessity. These wafers? Compact, rich in calcium, and immune to spoilage. They're survival food dressed as a snack. Next, someone hands you a cup of cold barley broth with dried thyme, cloudy and lukewarm, from a clay jug sloshing on the back of a donkey. You sip. It tastes like earth and sun. Rehydration disguised as flavor. Not delicious, but deeply, weirdly nourishing. In the shade of a rocky overhang, a boy hands you sun-dried watermelon rind crisps, thinly sliced and spiced with black pepper and sumac. You try one. It snaps like glass. The flavor? Sweet, sour, peppery, and oddly meaty. You glance at the boy. He nods solemnly, as if to say, "Yes, it's supposed to taste like that." A man nearby breaks off a chunk of baked lentil and salt bar, something that looks like it could patch a hole in your sandal. You gnaw on it. It's dense, gritty, and tastes like the bottom of a storage sack. But somehow it grows on you. Your stomach seems to approve. It always does when lentils are involved. Later, at a dusty caravanserai made from stacked limestone and good intentions, you're served fire-roasted date pits, cracked open to reveal their smoky, nutty interiors. They're chewed slowly, less for flavor and more for passing time. You crunch one. It's like nibbling on desert wisdom. A woman passing through offers you something she calls sand cakes, which turns out to be roasted semolina balls flavored with burnt sugar, dried rose petals, and cardamom. You bite. It crumbles in your mouth like dry snow, sweet and gritty and oddly floral. It coats your tongue, then disappears like a ghost. You're immediately handed another. Along a winding pass, you're offered a small packet of dried fermented yogurt pucks, shaped like buttons and meant to be sucked on, not bitten. You try anyway. Mistake. Your jaw sends you a warning. So you suck. It tastes like the memory of cheese mingled with salt and thyme. Surprisingly addictive once your mouth stops protesting. One of the older camel herders produces a cloth roll of date paste logs, studded with crushed nuts and rolled in powdered coriander. They're slightly sticky, slightly spicy, and perfect for slow chewing under a cruel sun. He says it's good for heart, bones, and memories. You ask, which memories? He just chuckles. Someone offers you a handful of charcoal roasted chickpeas and melon seeds, blackened on the outside, warm in the hand. They crack between your teeth like tiny firecrackers. The salt is faint, the crunch immense, the joy subtle. You share a fire with a quiet traveler who unwraps a bundle of fig leaf tamarind squares, cut into neat cubes and wrapped in goat parchment. The flavor? Sharp, smoky, sticky, like sour fruit leather got a diploma. You suck one while staring into the flames and wonder how many miles are left. The last offering of the day is something odd. camel tallow fritters dipped in cinnamon oil. You raise an eyebrow. The cook shrugs. "Desert donut," he says. You take a bite. It's crisp on the outside, dense and savory sweet inside, with a whisper of fat that lingers on the tongue like a well-told tale. As darkness falls, the desert cools fast. You wrap yourself tighter and nibble the last of your mango skins, feeling the day settle into your bones like fine dust. Here, snacks aren't meant to impress, they're meant to endure. Salted, dried, smoked, or pressed, each one is a pact with the land. If you chew me slowly, I'll carry you farther. And tonight, that's more than enough. The desert fades behind you now, slowly traded for the rhythm of Roman stonework and sea breeze. You've crossed into one of the westernmost trade settlements along the Silk Road, a Roman trading outpost where eastern goods meet olive oil, where amphorae stack beside silk bundles, and where snacks come with a wink and possibly a glass of something fermented. You stroll past a bustling forum where voices clash in Latin, Greek, and something vaguely Aramaic. There's a wine vendor juggling grapes like a street performer, a baker flinging flatbread into an open-mouthed oven, and near the fountain a pair of loud merchants are slicing open a sticky cloth bundle to reveal wine-soaked pine nuts. They offer you a handful. You accept. The flavor is indulgent, sweet from the wine, earthy from the nuts, and sticky enough to fuse two fingers together. Apparently, these were popular among traveling dignitaries and upper-class merchants, protein-packed, wine-infused, and easy to stash in togas. Historians still argue whether pine nuts were more often used in travel food or aphrodisiacs, but in this case, the answer might be yes. You walk further into the heart of the outpost, guided by your nose more than your feet. A baker waves you over to sample a fennel cake, small, round, and golden, with a crust of crushed honeycomb and tiny fennel seeds baked right in. You take a bite. It crumbles instantly, filling your mouth with warm sweetness and the lightest touch of licorice. You immediately want to write poetry, or sleep in a vineyard. These cakes, you learn, were often sold outside bathhouses or tucked into soldiers' saddlebags as compact energy boosts. The fennel was thought to aid digestion and sweeten the breath, two things you're beginning to appreciate more with every leg of this journey. By the docks, a woman roasts salted broad beans in olive oil, shaking them in a hot pan until their skins blister. She offers you a warm handful in a waxed paper cone. Crunchy, nutty, salty in a way that hits just right after a morning of travel. You ask how long she's been selling them. She says, since Rome had emperors and olives were still exciting. A nearby vendor wraps a leaf of grapevine jerky around a piece of aged cheese. Gently pickled and sun-dried, the leaf is chewy and sharp, pairing surprisingly well with the smoky cheese inside. You chew slowly, wondering how many people have sat right here, by the sea, gnawing the same strange snack. There's a group of philosophers, drunk ones, debating loudly over bowls of honeyed barley clusters, each one pressed together with fig syrup and lemon peel. You sneak a few from their table when they're distracted by a particularly heated argument over whether sleep is an illusion. The barley bites are soft, sweet, and oddly crunchy in the middle. You side with the man in the purple sash who says, "Dreams are just poorly cooked memories." A boy with ink-stained hands sells cheese-filled grape dumplings, something his mother apparently invented when flour ran low. You take one. It's soft, tart, and tastes like a picnic blanket left too long in the sun, in the best possible way. You ask for another. He charges you double and calls you a generous fool. One older vendor sits beside a tray of roasted fig chips, sliced paper thin, crisped in olive oil, and dusted with dried rosemary and sea salt. You buy a handful and eat them slowly as you watch seagulls harass fishermen for anchovies. The chips taste like sun-dried thyme. In a side alley, a merchant peels open a jar and offers you a spoonful of black garlic paste with crushed walnuts. You accept. It's sweet, savory, dark as ink, and spreads across your tongue like velvet mixed with thunder. He tells you it was once used as an offering in certain funerary rites. You nod, then take a second spoonful, half in reverence, half in addiction. Later, by a shady marble column, a soldier on leave offers you grilled chickpea balls dipped in cumin yogurt. You bite into one. It's smoky, crispy, and gone too fast. He tells you it was the only thing his cohort ever agreed on. You can conquer empires, he says, but try getting 10 men to agree on bread texture. A few stalls down, a poet is chewing on a strip of lemon-rind nugget with crushed myrtle seeds. He gives you a piece without speaking. You chew in silence together. It tastes bittersweet, floral, and a little wild, like something meant to be eaten slowly while watching stars. You thank him. He bows like it's nothing. As the day fades, you follow the smell of roasting fish into a small taverna, where a plate of anchovy-stuffed olives coated in crushed hazelnuts waits for someone foolish enough to try it. You are that fool. You eat one. It's strange, salty, crunchy, and somehow nostalgic. You finish the day seated on a crumbling step overlooking the harbor, watching ships load silk bolts and ceramic jars, tasting faint traces of wine, fennel, and figs still on your tongue. The sea is near, the next road longer. But for tonight, you are full of Roman snacks, bartered stories, and the kind of sleepy satisfaction that only comes from chewing history. The road south grows quiet now. You've left the coast, the stones of empire, the buzz of Latin and gold. What remains is heat, and a long red road that runs through scrubland and open sky. You're entering the territories where trade slows, not because people don't travel here, but because everything else moves slower. The air, the animals, even the snacks seem to take their time. You come to a crossroads marked only by a shriveled tree and a man selling food from a donkey cart. His specialty? Burnt onion paste spread over barley cakes. You chew. It's smoky, deeply savory. The onion flavor has been slow cooked into something dark and mysterious, like roasted garlic that forgot how to be friendly. Strangely satisfying. He tells you the paste is used in this region to treat fevers and cool down an angry spirit. Whether that means a literal spirit or just someone having a bad day isn't clear. But the paste is delicious, so you nod and eat more. You notice a wedge of lemon resting beside the pan, left there to absorb the bitterness. You leave it in peace. You press on toward a village where children chase dust devils and women sit around a communal fire, slowly baking charcoal-baked yams. These yams are nothing like the sweet orange ones you're used to. They're white-fleshed, hard, sliced into coins and placed directly into hot ash. When handed to you, they're still warm, smoky, soft in the middle, and coated with crushed coriander and chili powder. You eat 5 before you remember your manners. These tubers were a staple in many marginal Silk Road routes, nutrient-dense, easy to store, and immune to heat. Some scholars believe charcoal baking was used not just for flavor, but for purifying the roots spiritually. Others say it was just the best way to not burn your house down. Both make sense. Later, under the shade of a thorny tree, an old woman gives you a curious offering: sun-dried lemon slices smeared with rock salt and tamarind pulp. You chew one. It's so sour your ears ring. But then the salt hits, and your mouth wakes up like it's late for something important. Not a casual snack. This is food that demands your full attention. As you wander through a goat-herding camp, a quiet elder offers you a cloth pouch of carrot and fenugreek fritters, fried crisp, and seasoned with powdered cumin flour. You take a bite. The outside crunches gently, while the inside is soft and earthy. There's a note of bitterness that dances with the oil. They say this combination promotes even breathing, especially in hot weather. You nod mid-chew and inhale a little more deeply. A boy playing with a slingshot hands you a small wooden stick with molasses-roasted chickpeas glued together by date syrup. You gnaw it like a candy bar, sticky, nutty, loud in the mouth. You remember being 8 years old for a moment, and it feels like home, wherever that is. Nearby, someone pours you a cup of lukewarm tamarind broth infused with basil seeds and dried ginger. It looks like something from a potion shop. It tastes like sweet sour soup with a crunch. Hydrating, they say, for the inside of your skin. You don't ask. At a roadside shelter, a group of women bake mustard seed flatbread over iron slabs, then smear it with a paste made of dried mango powder, crushed garlic, and something that might be fermented cactus pulp. You take a bite. The mustard hits first, sharp, pungent. Then the mango, which sours everything nicely. You finish the whole piece before you've fully processed the flavor. A good sign. Later that day, a merchant unwraps a banana leaf parcel to reveal boiled lentils pressed with dried tamarind and dried chili threads. They've congealed into a soft square, almost like a jelly. You poke it. It jiggles. You eat it anyway. It's sour, savory, and leaves a trail of warmth down your throat. Lunch for people with no time, he says. In a rocky hamlet with one communal well, someone offers you a ceramic cup filled with soured goat milk whipped with fennel ash and coriander seeds. You hesitate, then sip. It's thick, tangy, almost foamy. Your stomach makes a noise like it's unsure how to file this under known experiences. You sip again anyway. On a low table, a woman sells dried tamarillo slices dipped in ginger oil, lined up like parchment bookmarks. You try one. Sweet, tart, bitter, floral. Every part of your mouth gets a different note, and for a moment you forget which direction you were walking. As twilight settles, you sit under a tree beside a peddler with a woven basket of cumin seed caramels, brittle and shiny in the fading light. You break one with your teeth. It snaps like ice and floods your tongue with heat and sugar. You imagine this was once a nobleman's indulgence, or maybe a monk's mistake. Either way, you approve. With your back against a warm stone, the sky fading from gold to violet, your hands sticky from caramels and your breath sweet, sharp from fennel and garlic. You feel the full truth of the road settle in your bones. Here, food isn't just sustenance, it's a slow, deliberate prayer. One offered in salt, ash, and spice. One chewed bite by bite under a sky too big for small thoughts. You've reached the eastern edge of the map now, where the Silk Road kisses the ocean and the air tastes faintly of brine, seaweed, and possibility. You can hear gulls overhead, smell fish drying on woven mats, and see the sails of junks and merchant dhows flapping against the horizon. This is the coastline of southern China and northern Vietnam, a place where trade isn't just about distance but direction. Salt meeting spice, land meeting tide. Naturally, the snacks here are just as strange and just as eager to be chewed with caution. The first thing you're handed is a palm-sized bundle of seaweed crackers, folded like origami and toasted over charcoal. They're speckled with sesame, brushed with soy sauce, and layered so thin you can see the sunlight through them. You bite into one. It crunches like dried paper, then melts into an umami wave of ocean and smoke. You immediately want 10 more. Dried seaweed was a common travel staple in this region. Light, portable, and rich in minerals. The crackers evolved from monk diets and sailor rations into proper coastal snacks. Historians still argue whether their popularity was born from necessity or devotion. Either way, you chew and feel wiser. Further inland, on a bamboo-covered slope, a fisherman's wife offers you a ceramic jar filled with pickled quail eggs, floating in rice vinegar and laced with tiny red chilies. You pop one in your mouth. It's tender, tangy, and gives your tongue a small but pointed electric shock. Your eyes water slightly. She nods with pride. A little farther down, a child hands you what looks like a sugar cube, but slightly spongy. Fermented rice sugar bite, he says. You chew. It's soft, sweet, and faintly alcoholic, with a floral aftertaste. They say it's a leftover treat from temple offerings, a gift from gods to monks, or maybe vice versa. On the docks, a group of longshoremen share skewers of dried octopus jerky glazed in 5-spice honey. You're handed one. It's chewy, very chewy, like trying to gnaw affection into an old boot. But the flavor keeps you going. Sweet, anise-heavy, and spiked with something peppery that lingers behind your ears. Nearby, a basket vendor offers a square of lotus root candy pressed with crystallized ginger and tamarind. It's crunchy on the outside, jelly-like inside, and somehow manages to taste both refreshing and vaguely philosophical. You wonder how many philosophical snacks you've now eaten. Probably too many, or not enough. Beside a tide pool, you meet a woman selling salted plum biscuits, dry as driftwood and puckered with sour fruit. You bite into one, your mouth seizes, then settles, then asks for another. She laughs. Good for boat stomach, she says. You believe her. A group of boys play a shell game with shrimp paste rice crackers, the kind that puff up when fried and then get painted with fermented chili paste. You join them, lose terribly, win a cracker anyway. It's crisp, spicy, and tastes like a very organized fish got trapped in a party. A monk in brown robes sits cross-legged, nibbling from a small jar of sweet sea cucumber leather. He offers you a strand. You try not to stare. It's chewy, mild, A little sweet, a little like licking a rock that once went through culinary school. You nod solemnly, unsure how else to respond. You wander into a floating market where someone hands you a roll of sticky rice filled with pickled bamboo shoots and tiny salted fish. You bite. The textures clash and merge. Sour, salty, sticky, smoky. This is a snack that's been somewhere. It knows things. One vendor sells dried dragon fruit strips coated in black sesame and lime salt. You chew a piece. It tastes like candy made by someone who spent too long staring at the ocean. Sweet, citrusy, and very, very pink. Another merchant offers fermented garlic-stuffed dumplings, small and sticky, wrapped in banana leaf and steamed over coconut husk fire. You take a bite. The garlic hits like a polite punch, then softens into something earthy and almost nutty. You blink, possibly cry, definitely chew more. Down by the water's edge, an elderly woman is spreading out squid ink flatbread, sun-dried and painted with rice vinegar and kelp powder. You nibble a corner. It tastes like the ocean took a nap on your tongue, and you don't mind one bit. Before you go, someone hands you a simple treat: candied ginger wrapped in edible rice paper. It dissolves like tissue, then gives way to the slow burn of sugar and spice. It clears your nose, clears your head, reminds you the road goes farther still. You stand on a dock, snacks in every pocket, salt in your hair, and 100 flavors still swirling around your teeth. Behind you, roads of dust and spice. Ahead, waves, boats, clouds. The silk has reached the sea, and so have you. You breathe deep, taste seaweed, smile. You've reached the crossroads, not just of geography but of appetite, a dusty market outpost tucked between river and ridge where traders from every direction, desert, steppe, jungle, mountain, and coast converge. This isn't the place where snacks are born, it's where they mingle. The leftovers of 10 regions, the strange hybrids of other people's long journeys, and now yours too. You step into the market square, and it feels like walking into a dream of food. Steam wafts from clay pots, flies buzz lazily over dates and smoked fish. A goat sneezes somewhere in the distance. The first offering is simple, a mash-up ration pack from a northern trader. In it, one sun-dried apricot stuffed with fermented goat cheese, a twist of smoked barley, and 2 coriander-laced chickpeas jammed into a ball and tied with string. You chew it like someone exploring a minefield. Sweet, salty, smoky, tangy, a complete arc of emotion in 3 seconds. Next is a dried mango disc, sliced razor thin, then soaked in rose vinegar and sprinkled with crushed black sesame and pine ash. It cracks like sugar glass between your teeth and floods your tongue with memory. The vendor tells you it's for long remembering. Of what, exactly, he doesn't say. Beside him, a woman sells trail dumplings, small pockets filled with mixtures only a long journey can justify. Lentils, fermented garlic, crushed fig, and something she calls desert greens. Probably tumbleweed, you think. It's chewy, earthy, strange. You eat 3. A boy walks past selling leftover biscuit shards from 3 different caravans. Roman shortbread, seaweed crackers, and Sogdian fennel cake, all crushed together and packed into honey. You buy one. You bite. It tastes like memory loss and dessert at the same time. A monk shares a handful of herbal trail beads designed to dissolve slowly on the tongue, each one flavored with a mystery: dried citrus rind, fermented beet leaf, barley flour, or clove oil. You pop one in. You have no idea what you're tasting, but your brain gets very quiet, very fast. Nearby, a table of accidental snacks, broken pieces, recipe errors, and storage mistakes that turned into tradition. You sample a shard of charred lentil taffy, a salt-pickled fig pit, and something labeled only as "not originally food." You chew. Slowly. You survive. You might be stronger now. You watch a cook fold flatbread around sea cucumber jerky, onion paste, and crushed chickpeas. You blink. He calls it Sogdian sandwich. You take a bite. It's terrible and incredible and oddly familiar. The kind of snack that lingers in your mouth longer than you expected. A traveler from the East shares vinegar-soaked plum seeds stuffed inside dried jujube fruit, like trail mix from an alternate universe. You eat one. It squeaks, literally squeaks between your teeth. You shrug, chew on. You're handed a folded pouch of fig syrup toffee with chili threads and ground pistachio dust. It melts in your mouth like warm ambition. Someone suggests pairing it with a cup of sour barley tea brewed with rose hips and black garlic. You do. You survive again. The sun climbs. The market starts to thin. You sit beneath a silk canopy, eating fermented wheat crisps dipped in quince molasses, sipping on salted cucumber water, and watching the dust swirl in lazy circles. A man sits beside you, chews a dried lemon wedge dipped in honey ash, and says, "Most snacks are just quiet prayers." You nod. You believe that now. Before you leave, someone hands you a farewell ration ball, a mess of spices, dried roots, salt, vinegar, and old bread pressed into a tight, chewy orb. No label, no story, just everything left over, packed together. You chew it on the road, watching the wind dance through the plains, and you think, this is what the Silk Road really traded. More than silk, jade, spices, or paper, it traded taste, patience, chewed stories, flavors with no country, snacks with passports and footprints. And now you carry them too. The road quiets now. The carts have rolled on, the traders' voices fading into the warm hush of twilight. You're seated beneath a tree that doesn't have a name, its branches tracing slow patterns against a pale pink sky. Your fingers are still sticky from quince toffee, your breath softly flavored with tamarind, vinegar, and pine. And now your body finally exhales. You've walked across deserts and coasts, chewed through silk and salt, stuffed your pockets with fermented figs and mystery nuts. You've tasted things that didn't quite want to be tasted. You've nibbled the past, one strange bite at a time. The wind has turned gentle now, slipping through leaves like a lullaby in a language you don't know. Your eyes feel heavy, but not from weight, more like softness settling into the edges of your thoughts. Even the memory of lizard jerky feels distant, a dream someone else told you once. You feel it, don't you? The slowing of your breath, the lengthening of your blinks, the way your shoulders drop a little further with each quiet moment. This is what snacks were for. Not just hunger, but rest, comfort, memory. Chewing the world slowly enough to understand it. And now your body knows it's time. Let the flavors fade. Let the road dissolve into starlight. Let your thoughts trail off like campfire smoke. You're full, you're still, you're safe. Sleep well, traveler.